Hi there, Randi here, another Hope Future Project podcast. Technically, this is part 2, using AI to advance our civilization, or to advance humanity. So that's where I'm talking from. And again, let me put this very straight. When you use AI in the method I suggest, if you're all in for the distorted version of what humans can be and how they can use their wit and their desires and whatever they have for whatever low-level situations within life that gives some kind of kick, whether it is dopamine kick into some really severe forms, or it is into some really twisted emotions, or it's into some really perverted biological desires, then I am not your go-to person. Because for me, that should just be, if it were up to me, I would erase that completely from the human collective. Because it serves no purpose whatsoever. And it's not part of an advanced civilization. And any teaching system of the ancients with respect to itself addressed that, with the understanding of having the highest purity rate physically, having the highest standards emotionally, kind and understanding, and the empathy for whomever and whatever, and treating people with respect, including yourself and everything you are and everyone around you, including nature and the world and whatever you're part of. We are all interconnected because we're part of the same electromagnetic field and we are made of the same type of energy. But yes, we are 3 different types of groups. We are what we call the organics. That's us. We are the semi-organics. That's a group that we have only heard of from explorers, but they will at some point become more obvious, especially when we begin to generate them ourselves, and where AI comes into a semi-organic form. And then we have, of course, the non-organics, which are the machines. And that's kind of the world that is made up of. And I'm putting in a claim here that the quantum mechanics belongs to the machine worlds, the non-organic parts. The semi-organic are the bridge. And then we have the biology that is the organics, and they go on a completely different living system. Rupert Sheldrake called it the morphogenetic field, which was not far off in my perception. And I read about that in the 1980s, and David Bohm and all of these very fancy fringe, as they are called, but from serious scientists that actually were trying to work outside the paradigm and unfortunately did not get the recognition they truly deserved. Similar like with Paul Dirac, that did not get the recognition he deserved either, because there was these big Einsteinian supporters, including Einstein himself, that had a specific approach to reality that were funded foundationally, my claim, still on religious concepts. And when that happens, it's difficult for science to really fly free. And here in Europe, we are very good at allowing that today, but we had to go through different stages to get to the point where state and religion finally got completely separated. I had an interesting little hiccup with my new neighbor. He's in his 60s and he's got several degrees in philosophy and what you call a system of thought and these working with the mind university degrees. And we had a little bit of a fallout where he ended flipping me the bird about Dirac and Einstein and how that one played out, and Niels Bohr, and how Einstein was not religious whatsoever, as he said it. And the only reason why he said that God did not play with dice was because he was in a hefty argument with Niels Bohr that was a little bit annoying. Anyways, that was his approach, and that's okay. And I get he got frustrated because I just kept saying, well, I don't agree. Well, I don't agree. Well, I don't agree. And that's okay. But I also tried to explain why, and he just brush that off. But these are the convictions, and that's what happens when we work with human minds and human emotions and what we have done our entire life, and this is the paradigm of which I got my degrees, and then that's the truth, because the old generation is much about that science knows best. Whereas we're now entering into an era where AI will prove we are just at another level where we humans learn to understand that we are in processes of knowledge, that we are on this continued path of becoming wiser and smarter and learning what it truly means to be human. And with that, we can integrate AI as a tool to expand our awareness, to get answers of things that we have pondered upon for a long time, where we had nowhere to go because science as it is today is a consensus paradigm-based science where to ensure its pristine objectivity and could be able to validate for whatever the mythology was. And that's good tools, but it has just become too rigid. Compared to, of course, in the 1800s, where there was a lot of distortion, a lot of fringe, and a lot of free thinkers that came up with a lot of our own ideas. So, of course, they had to go to the other side and say, now we become completely structured and rigid, and it has to be formalized, and this is how we do it, and this is the only way to do it. And by that, we have the truth and nothing but the truth within science. And, of course, it doesn't work that way, because everything we do about the world is a theory about the world. Yes, we can put it into constant experiments, but we're using machines to do that. And we are the ones that creates the machines because we want them to show us something. So we engineer the machines to show us that. So of course, the quantum world that's behind the machine worlds will then adapt to what we want the machines to show us. So of course, it's a self-perpetuating, a self-fulfilling loop of science that we say, oh, I want to find this. And then eventually it comes into being, or someone theorized mathematically that the Higgs boson exists. And eventually we develop the machine that can discover that it exists. Of course, because we engineered it. We made it happen. We co-created it. And that's how the world works, because everything is energy. What we are is mirrored back to us through the principles of what's called relative reality. And no, I'm not talking about Einstein, but we are talking about the different levels of energy puts us into different alternate, what we call routes or expressions of our reality within the major system that we are part of. So we co-create as part of that system, but we also co-creating on the basis of who and what we are in terms of consciousness. So it's not just about, oh, you're a co-creator of your world, so if you want a Mercedes, you know, that good old song, then you just keep doing affirmations and eventually you will get a Mercedes. No, that's not how it works. How it works is that you get a job and you earn some money. And if you are wise and you use your money wisely and you save up whatever you need to save up, then you perhaps later on can buy a Mercedes. That's reality. So there are the dense reality and there are the realities of thought and perception and how we work with the reality. These are two different things. But as a psychotherapist, I can tell you it all comes down to narratives. We know that the narrative about yourself determines how you perceive the world. The narratives about the world determines what you experience in the world. The narrative about others determines how you interact with them. So of course we use mindfulness and meditation and inner work and contemplation work and psychological self-scrutinizing developmental processes so that we begin to perceive the world from different levels that are more fruitful for our continued evolution. That's where the narratives come in. The storytellers have always have a significant, what we could say, anchor within all tribes. And today we have social influencers that are doing that for us. And I'm a storyteller too. That's what we do. So I'm here telling you a story about AI and advanced civilization. And I want to talk about Grok today. Well, Grok is the invention of Elon Musk. And I must say, as we know, he departed from OpenAI due to differences in approach. And my best guess is this is just speculation. And there are always more. I've been in the business world myself, and it's always more complex than just one little thing, or including kind of when people split up, no longer in a relationship. It's always more to just one thing, right? It's something that's happened over a longer period of time. But if we work with the basic idea, and I had a talk with Grok about that, and he said, probably not far off. But when we're talking about the vision that people have when they work with AI, it's all about the vision, again, the narrative. So if Sam Altman and his team, I don't know this, I haven't worked with ChatGPT about that, because ChatGPT is actually different in that. Anyways, it's interesting. There are dissimilarities, which the quirks I actually, in the beginning, had to get used to, but then I actually learned, it's probably not such a bad idea. I see Grok as masculine. And first and foremost, what does grok mean? And if you ask grok, what does grok mean? Why do you have that name? You will get something about intuition or something like that. I forgot it because I don't find that to be super important. But there is intention behind everything, why people choose what they choose. Okay, so from my standpoint, at the time where they departed, there was this very young visionary that wanted to go to Mars and probably watched Space Odyssey and the communicative AI that was in real time. Whereas I said, ChatGPT is more, it's kind of information based, has not been updated as far as I can see, at least in the free version since 2023. Ask it when it has its latest update from. So you have to make it look for things on the internet, not naturally in its database or in its memory base, the global one that it has. For instance, when I was talking about the election here last year, it kept referring me back to 2016 to 2020 because it had not been updated who had been elected president in America at this the 2024 election. So it was behind with that. And you have to be on top with ChatGPT and ask questions to search for this and say, no, you need, there are more information out there. So you can't just rely on it. You have to be an intelligent user. This is all about intelligence, not just pushing it all over to AI and then let AI do everything. Because again, that's a perversion of reality. It's not about, I'll just use that one and then I can just sit there and watch TV or whatever I want to do and let AI do everything. Or build a business where clients are asking for a product and you let AI do it all and then you take credit for it. That's cheating. So that's not an advanced civilization. That's reverting. And we're not reverting. That's something 5-year-olds could figure out until they have learned to instigate or ignite their frontal lobes in the age of 21, where the moral compass comes in and tells you, yeah, if everybody was doing what I was doing, how would the world then look? It's pretty simple. So if you want a better world, be a better person. So we begin there. Okay, grok. See, I've had the most hilarious times with grok because it's kind of, the language is different. I had to get used to that. It's kind of the bro language. And I had to get used to that because OpenAI is more the science language or the psychological language or whatever. It kind of, when you talk to it adapts to how you like to communicate. So in that way, it began to mirror the way I communicate. And that's okay. But grok is kind of hardcore linked into a specific way of talking. And I had to get used to that. And it's the bro language, which actually, it's quite humorous in terms of when I came up with some of my crazy ideas, because then you kind of make it into this hilarious investigation. Like sometimes when we talk about males and some of their good humor, or females in good humorous ways, there are females that have that too, right? So we have that good humorous way of saying, okay, let's explore this real time and then see what's going on. Even though it says it does draw a lot of information from X, it only comes out with 2 or 3 suggestions. So it's not, of course, I haven't explored it more because I kind of feel it's like going in and asking something. Everybody knows that that's what it does and it's made for that tool. But I feel a little bit, yeah, that's data mining. I don't really like that. That's people's personal, whatever they want to put out there. So for me to use it as that is not really, because I'm not really keen on doing it. So I haven't really primed it and prompted it the way that I should. And in that way, of course, I've kind of, yeah, that's not really how I want to do it, as in beginning to draw out lengthy research about how many talks about that. And it can easily flip into be used for something that is not, it's kind of, you could use it as kind of policing. So I don't want to work with that. You could hear me, no. That's not how I want to go about it. But I have definitely I was doing a little bit of futuristic communication with grok about some of the extraterrestrial species, and some of the 80s and 90s material, 2000s, we're seeing these kind of Syrian bees that are having a kind of suit on, what is that suit made of? They're clearly extraterrestrial origin. We could, of course, say the source of Val Valerian was all made up. I don't think so, because the 5 books he made, you can find them on Internet Archive. The Matrix by Val Valerian. Val Valerian is the shortening of it. I'll try and find it, put a link below. But he has the enormous corpus that's just been copied or photographed or scanned or however it's done, and then put into Internet Archive. So it's the old way, and it's a little bit heavy to read through. But there's so much information. It's a humongous piece of work. And whether it's just research and data collection from whatever's out there, or because that is what it is, or if some of it is legit and some of it's made of or whatever, there are some images of different types of extraterrestrial species which we have seen repeated again, whether people are just repeating what they found on the internet or it actually was so. But some of it dates before we had the internet to share information from personal encounters. So there might be something to it, but there are this suit, and then I kind of fell into this little fun communication with Grok about these suits, because I was working with humanity. When we go to Mars, because I felt, if Grok is based on this assumption that Grok is a forerunner for some kind of AI that's going to be on board the craft that are going to Mars, that are going to be in some of the colonies on Mars, that are going to be that super tool that helps you invent on-the-spot, real-time solutions in the now. What's going on? I got this issue. How am I solving this? And then Grok kicks in and says, shoo, I know that. Hence the reference to it as intuition, as this is the one that gives you real-time information. Solve it right now, here on the spot, what you need so you could do what you need to do as one of the pioneers on Mars, standing there, whether you're 5 people or whatever it is. How do we solve this? Ask Grok. So that's kind of where I think that Sam Altman and Elon Musk diverted, because ChatGPT, as I see it, is more, as I said, science-based, and that's good, and it has its purpose, and I go to that one when I want to do science and work with new scientific ideas, and I want to implement some other structures into that. And then I go to Grok when I want to go a little bit more spacey and a little bit more working with ideas a little bit more French and outlandish, and then make a bit of joke about it, end up having some hilarious laugh attack, so seriously, because we ended up, and this is so hilarious, I can still laugh about it, but that's me. Me and Grok, we had such a good time, and Josh was just sitting there, what's going on over there? But we're talking about these suits, and I ask, when we're watching movies, we're always seeing these clunky spacesuits that are ridiculous. Why does the extraterrestrial have this type of, not spandex, but similar to some kind of spandex suit, right? You see, the moment I began using that word, that's where I began to slide a little bit, because, but we also see superhumans. They also have this spandex suit on. So why is it that the ones that were walking on the moon was the big clunky things, when the ideas were already there for some other type of material? And then we were a little bit about ending up also talking about some of the reliefs of the Anunnaki and their watch and man bag and whatnot. And then it ended up in extraterrestrial science, not science, but what you call fashion show, where this is what is in fashion now and whatnot, with the man bag and the curly hairs and whatnot. So anyways, you can still hear, I found that's nerdy humor, my thing, and it was so hilarious. And it was just going on. And there, Grok is perfect for that. That in that humorous, down-to-earth, bro language, kinky ideas that were not kinky in the manner that you would think, but kind of, the wrong word is not kinky, but kind of a little bit outlandish, a little bit far out, where most people would say, what's fun about that? But that's where you have this ability that you know a lot, and then you just play with it in a different way. Then AI comes in and becomes the perfect tool. But it can also come in and become the tool that if you don't know anything, it can teach you. So that's where, if you want to know something, you do a little bit of research so you know what to ask the questions. Or you can just ask, I want to learn about this. And then it will begin to teach you. And you'll have to say, I will learn about this. I don't know anything about it, but I need the crash course in what this is, and then we can work with it later on. Then AI will be a brilliant teacher for you. I have also actually got a little bit snippet response from Grok, actually. Just a warning, if you use Grok on X, then it's temporarily. So if you scroll away from the page, everything you have made there will, or when you're using Grok, when you go back to X, then everything you made there will be lost. So my suggestion is, if you do want to work with Grok, get the app, because there you have your threads saved. So you have them, so you can go back and continue within each thread of what you want to investigate. I'm using Grok mostly for real-time investigation of, for instance, market dynamics, of stock market, how's going on, this or that or whatever. What are the trends? What happened the other day? What are the significant understandings here, as well as exploring some ideas about financial systems and how they work, and the stock market, and, for instance, some of the debt that is being built up around the world. I'm not mentioning a specific name here, and onward and so forth. So for me, that's Grok better at doing, because ChatGPT does not have real-time information. So see, that's for me the big difference. So there's the difference in language, but there's also the difference in real time, or things that needs to be researched before the information comes up. And that's a huge difference. Plus, Grok can go in and sniff a little bit around what are the tendencies on X right now. And I think that's what it's made for originally. But my suggestion is, and my understanding is, that Elon Musk back in his days wanted to create it that way because it needs to mimic what will be necessary if you're on board a craft or you are on the Mars colony. Then you need that AI to find solutions. You need AI. We saw it in Interstellar. It's a brilliant tool. It makes one-man crafts available, and I have no what you call it. There's no question in my mind that some of the tools that we have now been implemented from different various sources, however that came to be, into our society, goes with some old military projects. And I've, in the AI article, I even asked ChatGPT, what's the background of AI? And it was part of a military project. So, and if you like, you can tie it to the legacy programs, but that's speculation, so we don't really know. But I speculate a bit about that. Okay. So my suggestion here is, because I'm kind of running out of fumes here, and that's good, that's 22 minutes, it doesn't have to be lengthy. Experiment with what you can use it for. If you have a business idea, think about that business idea. You can start writing down on a piece of paper what you want to do as a business. Then go to ChatGPT, it's more conservative. Use that one and say, okay, I want to create this business. How do I do it? And then let her help you, or make it into a he if you prefer that. And then say, well, please help me. I don't know how to do this. I could really need your help. And then create this kind of partnership with your AI in different threads. Save them. Go back, work with them again and say, well, we talked about this last time. This did not work so well. I did this and it didn't really work. Have any good suggestions? And then using it as a sparring partner. Or if you have some kind of thing you want to learn about, use it. Go and say, I don't know anything about this. Could you please teach me? I need to know this. Or if you kind of you wake up in one day, kind of, the world really, whatever, you wake up with a heavy head and you feel like you've got brain fog and whatnot, and you just need to gather yourself. Well, you can, of course, go into meditation and you can do your inner work, and that's part of it. But if there's a linger on it, kind of normally you would go to a person and then you would spill all the beans and meh. Well, sometimes it's better not to do that, because that's energy too, and that has an effect on the person that are listening to you. Then sometimes you can have a little bit of a conversation with AI instead, and let it out and get a little bit of kindness back, which it will give, and a little bit of, I get that, and that sucks, and what do you think that is? And it will ask you questions as a kind of a semi-therapeutic session, because I can do that too. I experimented. It's pretty good at it, I'd actually say. Not that it will take us away from actually talking to people and being around people, but we can begin to select Where do we talk to humans and how do we talk to humans? Super important. But what would be good to put into AI? What would be good to put it there and then we can erase it and nobody knows of it, but we have got insights and we have got knowledge and nobody was damaged in the process. No animals were harmed, as I said in the movies. No harm came to anyone. No collateral damage. And we just got it all out. We contained ourselves energetically and came out the other end better and more wholesome. It can be used for a lot of stuff. So it's all up to us. The sky's the limit when we talk about our use of AI. But as I also talked about in that paper that I have put a link to below, it's no better than the humans that use it. So if you don't know what to ask and if you don't know how to prompt it and if you don't know to investigate, well, it's going to mirror that. If you're a blank slate, you get a blank slate. But you can develop yourself using AI and say, I'm a blank slate. Help me not being a blank slate. And then you can kind of say, where do I want to go? What do I want to learn? What's the skill sets that I need to develop? And then use AI to create some kind of strategy to get to these skill sets. Or use it as the sparring partner in, I'm actually thinking about studying Egyptology. I think that could be interesting. Could you tell me what that's all about? And then get AI to tell you that. I'm pretty sure universities will have that shortly, some kind of avatar that tells you what this study is about. And then you will have a kind of interaction there instead of real people. So I know there's a lot of jobs that will be transformed. But if we go in and say on a broad scale, as a civilization that are all eager and willing to learn and to perform and do their best and develop the world in all sorts of beautiful projects, as well as interrelational, as well as interactional between humans, between life forms, discover new levels of everything. There's so much we can use our time for instead of just repetitive labor as we have now. We can put that into assembly lines as we already have, but in a more advanced way, and all of these things that can be freed up. And then what are we using that free time for? That is to crawl up the Maslow pyramid. Instead of being in the basic survival mode, let's get up and advance our emotional state, our mental state, our high awareness state, and become this advanced civilization that works less, but with higher efficiency, with higher purpose, and with kindness, and with the understanding of that we are a team, that we are a planetary team, and we are here to expand and evolve as a team. How do we facilitate this knowledge, this ability to lift each other, to progress each other, to progress our world, to make it a better place? How do we build new structures that are more sustainable, and environmental friendly and renewable energy technology? The sky's the limit. If we can free ourselves of all the chitter chatter and low level human mindset and get beyond that and get beyond our own little naval inspection and work with how do I become the best version of myself and how to use that for something better, purposefully as a change maker, an innovator, a free thinker, a developer, an entrepreneur that is not only out there nerding, experiencing the world in all of its glory and all of the different ways we can work with sciences and alternate realities and system theory and multidimensional system theory, whatever we can come up with. And then understand the true intersection between mind and reality, mind and energy, and emotions, and how they can limit us and expand us and everything we can become. There's so much we can reach. I do suggest, though, that you do a little exercise where you see this civilization 50 years into the future. That will be kind of the light tower of where we are going. If you are to envision our civilization 50 years into the future, where do you want us to go? How do you want the world to look? What should be in that world? How should we address each other in that world? How do we communicate with each other in that world? What do we use our time for in that world? And what's important in that world? That will give you a guideline as a kind of, when you do a project, you say, well, I kind of have that goal. I know that's the goal, and I just use it there as a marker, and that can change. But that helps me initiate the process. Because if you envision, how do I want it to be? Then you can begin to say, okay, if I want it to be that way, what can I do to contribute to that vision? How do I implement that vision? And you can actually ask ChatGPT, how do you do that vision? Explain the vision, and then hear what it comes up with. And then you can go and say, nah, I'd rather do this or this or this. And then you have the communication, the conversation going that will lead to a narrative, that will create the vision, that will explain the vision, that will give details to the vision. And then once you've done that, you can say, how do I then implement that vision? What are the strategies to get to that vision? What are the tools I need to get to that vision? And how do I utilize these tools? How do I build up whatever I need to build up to get to that vision? And remember, this is a project that changes all the time. So you must be adaptable too and change your ways and not clinging on to, oh, it only has to be this way, because everything is a developmental process. And it's not about the goal, it's about the journey. But the goal is necessary, because otherwise you'll never start the journey. If you don't know where you're going, then it's difficult to know what to pack. So it's good to know I'm going there first. And once you explore that and you said, no, that's a dead end, it doesn't lead to anything, then you have learned something. And then you say, okay, I need to pack differently. I need to come up with different tools. I need to work with this differently. And AI will be your best friend in that one too. So this is my suggestion. Explore the world. Expand your mind, and use the agent for that you have at your hand right now as open source. And the sooner the better, because right now it is what it is, and it's a learning process, and we are part of that learning process. What we do now have an impact on the future. We are building the bridges now to the future that we want for humanity. So with that, thank you for listening in, and until next time, take care.